Welcome to the Near Memo, a weekly conversation about search, social, and commerce. What happened, why it matters, and the implications for local. Interestingly, however long, I said it was a decade ago in the article yesterday, but it may be a little bit less than that. John Hankey, who's now at Niantic Labs, who's doing the AR platform stuff and Pokemon Go, used to be the head of Google Local and Maps. And he was talking about, Google Earth as a metaverse platform a decade ago. And, as a gaming platform. And at the time, and Bing did some similar stuff. At the time, it was a really cool idea. Nobody ever executed on it. Maybe Google should have. But this is not a mainstream product, I don't think.
But unlike this stuff that they announced, the hardware, this stuff, which probably is not mainstream, I think what could be and might be, and very well, it seems to be moving in that direction, is Lens with Multisearch and Mum, and possibly that extending into their glass world, built on the knowledge graph of products and locations and all the stuff they're doing with the knowledge graph. And you layer a visual search interface on top of that. It's not really VR per se, but it is a very compelling. And they said 8 billion searches a month in Lens or something, some big number they mentioned. Although big numbers are hard to understand in context because it may be a big number or sound like a big number. They don't show us what the real numbers are it compares to. But Lens seems to me, when you do what they say they're going to do, which is products near me, which is clearly coming, because if you take a picture right now of a business, they bring up the ratings and they might bring up the menu if it's a restaurant. If you take a picture in Lens of a product, they'll bring up the ability to buy that. I did try, before this was even announced, I did try aspirin near me or ibuprofen near me to see if it did anything. It didn't with Multisearch, but that's what this announcement was about. And I think that's very real. And assuming that you can get users to change the way they think about searching, it's a very real local tool that could have a big impact. David?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's Multisearch near me is really interesting. Multisearch has been, I mean, it was only announced a couple of months ago. Kind of an
not
interesting...
even that. It's about less than a month ago. It's pretty recent.
Well, Lens. I was going to talk about Lens actually, not Multisearch. Lens has been a kind of interesting tool. What's that flower? What's that plant? It's something that people sort of have played with and experimented with, but it's not really a mainstream search vehicle. But when you combine that with the Near Me capability, I think suddenly that does become pretty compelling, assuming, as you say, that there's the data behind it, right? So if I see a product in the world that I'm interested in and can find that near me, that's pretty cool. Or the example was the plumbing, the faucet piece that with the retractable faucet that he was looking for near me. There's a lot of use cases.
Yeah, for me, the use case would be, show me the faucet near me and the person who can install it. That would be
that's another piece. Yeah.
No. That would be the search for me. I don't want to go out through all 3 different searches. I want this piece, this product, this person. Get me there.
Right. So that's
I think.
Go ahead,
Mike. You sort of guessed that I'm a little skeptical of this feature as well, which I am, though not nearly as skeptical as the sort of metaverse virtual tour thing. I do think this would be very useful in certain industries, like home services is a good example. If you see a tile pattern that you like, you want to take a photo of that at a restaurant and have the tiles shipped to your house from whatever vendor. That makes a lot of sense to me. But there's so many business types where they don't lend themselves necessarily to a visual search as a natural mechanism, like lawyers. I'm not going to take a photo of a car accident and say, I need to hire a lawyer.
Attorneys
right? Or
near me.
Like there are all kinds of businesses that are just not as image or visual driven. On the flip side, there are certain industries where images are wildly important, and obviously the one that they're using in their sort of launch blog post is around food. Absolutely. If I, had a great meal somewhere and I want to know, where to get more like it, like I'm taking a photo. That makes a lot of sense. So
I think it's a compliment, obviously, to what else they're doing. It's not designed to replace traditional search, but I think it can, as you say, it can be very useful in certain circumstances. I mean, I might be in somebody's house and see a lamp, or I might, somebody might see some shoes on the street or something. Hey, why are you taking pictures of my shoes?
and get punched and possibly reported to
Right.
authorities.
The other thing that they talked about was the scene exploration, which is sort of an awkward term. I called it scene explorer, but I think scene exploration is the term.
They're so good at branding, Greg. How could they come up with something that's so hard to
Well, this
understand?
this is this is something that very much remains to be seen. But what they showed is, a store display with chocolate bars where you could hold the camera. This is not taking a static image and then searching on that image. It's the live camera, and then it's a kind of AR display of information about which you could supplement, nut free or whatever. So they're showing all these chocolate bars with overlays of information, ratings, and other things. I think that that's very interesting, but I'm very cautious to be too bullish on it because Google so often, you know, pre-announces things and then doesn't really deliver, or there's some sort of awkwardness about the experience. So if you could, for example, go into
You mean like Duplex being setting up appointments for you at a restaurant and everybody never using it for that purpose?
well,
That kind of.
perhaps, but say you're in a retail store, and people want two kinds of information. When they're using mobile devices in retail stores, they want two kinds of information. They want to know product quality ratings, and they want to compare prices. If you could just hold your camera over products, it's not taking a picture and then uploading a picture and then doing a search. It's you're just holding the camera over the product, and you could get that kind of information quickly. That would be quite interesting. You could go product, 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 and just get a lot of information very quickly. Now, that's a technical feat that Google would have to accomplish on the back end, but they seem to be capable of it. We'll see.
Just one thing about all of this effort around Lens and products and local is it does speak, and image understanding. It does speak to, one, their strengths, and two, their competitive situation. They are the only company beyond Apple that might be able to pull off integrated hardware, but in local, they're the only company that could pull off this visual search if it becomes, as David said, more than just a niche thing. They're the ones in a position to do it, and it would give them a competitive advantage in local product search beyond that would be hard for people to compete with.
Well, there's
But
nobody. There's nobody that could
no,
compete with it.
right, but it does require Apple hardware and regular Android hardware for it to get any kind of scale, right? Because again, their hardware is 2.31% of the United States, nothing, right? So the question is, will users adopt these new metaphors as a broad-based thing, or will it be a niche way of interacting with the local world?
Well, if it works and it's easy to use and there's a lot of data behind it, people will use it. I mean, uh, Live View, which they're now making. I thought Live View is just like walking directions, but really what it is it's like their whole Street View data set and other and positioning and all of that, and they're now making that available to third party developers. That was one of their announcements. But Live View really sucked for a long time. I don't use it. I mean, you that was the situation where you move the phone around to
To get nauseous,
get your position, and
get your
then
position. Oh,
and
right.
then right and then after you throw up, you can start walking in whatever. It'll do sort of step by step. It gives you an AR overlay on the map, and so it can direct you. And it just, in so many instances, uh, it just didn't know. It couldn't get a sense of where you were when I tried to use it. It just didn't work. It just was not good. Now maybe it's dramatically improved, but there are a lot of things that Google does that are like that.
Yeah, you wonder that technique of rolling it out early and iterating. turns people off.
Well, it certainly did with respect to Apple Maps.
Yeah, it took them years to recover from that.
Right.
Apple still pay, if they're still paying for it, I think.
And
so.
Google does it with every product, and these products need broad adoption, and people aren't that tolerant of it not working.
Well, and Google is somewhat impatient, right? They put things out in the market sometimes without much support or marketing effort behind them, or education, and then if they don't see immediate adoption or relatively quick adoption, they're
Meanwhile, they were perfectly happy to invest tens of billions of dollars into Google Plus, which was a disaster from the beginning. So,
yeah. And it turns out they didn't even really need to have that product.
Right. So I don't know. I think that this functioned as it probably did its job, because I do feel like a lot of people are talking about these things in the Twitter sphere. So I think from a branding exercise, it was probably very successful. But again, I didn't see anything here that was on the order of a new iPhone or an Apple Watch or something that's like a real game changer that is going to stick with us.
The one thing I would say was the demonstration of the AR glasses, which appears to be another instance of vaporware. And for those that didn't see it, the demo that they showed was a simultaneous language translation, where you had two people speaking different languages, and the translation was happening inside the glasses, and you were seeing a display of what the other person was saying. And I thought that was a very, very impressive demo, which means nothing, because a couple of years ago at I/O, they did a demo of simultaneous translation using an earpiece, and it was supposed to be the person was speaking, and then you were hearing the immediate translation in their ear. And then that turned out just to be a kind of a pure controlled demo. But the AR glasses, I thought, were really cool and really interesting, and a very practical sort of use case. Although, Mike, you were disputing that before our session began here. When do you need to talk to people of different languages?
It's not an everyday use case.
It's not. I mean, it's travel.
If you're lucky, at least. Yeah, you're traveling once a year to a country where you don't speak the language, if you're very lucky, and so it just doesn't affect that many people.
Well, there are people that interact in multilingual communities that are maybe not entirely fluent in those languages, and it might be also a language teaching tool, which could be quite interesting as well, which would be valuable.
I could imagine Lens and Multisearch moving over to the glass.
Yep.
So that it wouldn't be just translation, but it would be local shopping.
Right.
And, that's also an interesting interface to me. But again, it's like, is it broad enough? Will it succeed? And will they give it a chance to succeed?
The problem with I agree with you, Mike. That's very interesting to think about multi-search and local in a AR glasses scenario. But the problem is always the form factor of the glasses. Are you going to wear the goofy glasses, or even something that looks semi-normal? Are you just going to take your glasses on and off with, we all wear glasses. It's problematic. I mean, is that a clip-on somehow? But then where's the brain? It's just clunky.
My hope is infinitely adjusting lenses that know what I'm looking at and know what my prescription is at that distance.
Well, I mean, maybe, but it's.
I thought you were going to say bionic eye replacement.
No, I already did that. I have two new lenses that actually, despite my current need for reading glasses, which will never go away, my distance eyesight has gotten dramatically better, and I can now ride my mountain bike with abandon, and I no longer confuse the shadows with the stumps. That's a good thing, right? It's like I can see what to avoid and what not to. So I don't need glasses for that. Thank goodness.
On that happy note, we will adjourn for the day and see you next week. As always, subscribe to our newsletter and give us any feedback that you feel inclined to do. Thanks for joining David, Mike, and Greg. To stay on top of the latest developments in local, subscribe to our newsletter at nearmedia.co. We'll see you next week.